Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, says his organization is, quote, directly engaged in half a dozen lawsuits to expose the shadow government and stop dangerous national security leaks. Well, what is the shadow government? The executive director of the ACLJ, Jordan Sekulow, joins us now to explain and to talk about the legal battle against it. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. Talk
about what exactly is the shadow government.
This is not a conspiracy. You know, we don't trade in that at the American Center for Law and Justice as attorneys. What we are talking about here is the deep state, government bureaucracies and agencies and the people within who are not directly appointed by the President of the United States. They're not political appointees. They are careerists. And they were very in line with the Obama administration. They caused some trouble for the Bush administration, but not nearly. We've not nearly seen them this active before in an attempt to undermine an administration, what they're trying to do with the Trump administration. All of the leaks, when we talk about the leaks, that's who we're referring to, the leakers as the shadow government inside the intelligence agencies. I mean, but not just the intelligence agencies. So it's not always the classified info. It can be the State Department. For instance, we just got a court order. We're in federal court, as you mentioned, in half a dozen of these FOIA requests, even with the change in administration. That's how bad this problem is. And we have a good working relationship with the Trump administration, Mark. They haven't said to stop filing these lawsuits because the ultimate is they need to drive these folks out. You've got to get to the bottom of it. So the State Department has unearthed in one of our situations, this was involving a deal and a favor that the Clinton Foundation did, the State Department did for the Clinton Foundation. We filed a FOIA about it. They said they unearthed, 90,000 plus documents. You know how many they've given to us? 145. So we went back to court, and you know what the State Department's answer was? It'll take us 18 to 36 months to prepare all these documents. That's 3 years to prepare the documents. And a federal judge said that is unacceptable. So that is under this new administration, you are still dealing with that kind of bureaucracy. We've also filed FOIAs involving the FBI and the Department of Justice, specifically relating to the meeting between the former Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Jim Comey, the former and Bill Clinton, the former President of the United States, on that tarmac in Arizona, just a few days before the FBI director at the time, Jim Comey, announced that there would not be an investigation. We've later found out the FBI told us we have no documents related to that. Interesting, because we've now learned that Jim Comey kept all these memos about everything and said he got nauseous. And that was one of the reasons why he made that bizarre announcement on ending the investigation, was because of that meeting on the tarmac between the former Attorney General and former President of the United States. So we are filing these to, one, get to the bottom of the information, but two, to help begin to identify the leakers within this government.
Well, talk a little bit more about this legal battle. Where do things stand now? Do you feel like you're making progress? Are some of the leaks stopping? What's going on? What's the latest now? Where do things stand?
I think that the biggest issue involving leaks right now in the shadow government for the Trump administration, Mark, is obviously inside the intelligence world. And that is not stopping. I mean, just as in the last 48 hours, we've seen more leaks coming out of both the NSA and the Director of National Intelligence's office about what the president may or may not have said in private meetings with the NSA, the National Security, the NSA director and the Director of National Intelligence. I mean, and that's Admiral Mike Rogers from the National Security Administration, and of course, former Senator Dan Coats, who is now the Director of National Intelligence. Those were leaks. Those were leaks of information involving communications with the President of the United States. So what we believe is that ultimately, and this could be done actually through the special counsel and Bob Mueller, this could ultimately be a big backfire on a lot of Senate Democrats and House Democrats who have wanted this investigation of this supposed collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, is that the leaks could be identified. But what we believe, Mark, is that ultimately you will not stop what is almost daily. Every one of these news reports about the Trump administration, negative reports with anonymous sources, that means leaks. Those are leaks from within. And until people are prosecuted, they are violating the law. The leak is the crime. And until they are prosecuted, I don't think you're going to see a stop to all of the leaks. But I think if you just prosecuted a handful of people, And we're talking about, their homes would get raided because sometimes this is classified information they're sharing. And they could go to jail for, 10 years, longer in some cases, because each leak is a crime of itself. So if they've leaked multiple times, that's separate crimes. Prosecute them to the full extent of the law. And I think then it becomes a bigger question for these individuals who right now feel like they can leak with no consequences. That they'd have to really be a zealot, if you will, to risk imprisonment for leaking out information. And so that's something the Department of Justice can do by impaneling grand juries. It may be ongoing. I hope it is. We've certainly encouraged the Trump administration to do this. We'll do our part that we can in the civil court, but they have the power to prosecute, and I think that's what is really necessary here, Mark.
Jordan, for the person at home watching this interview, why should they care about the shadow government?
Well, one of the biggest issues is that the leak of classified information cannot become normal. Two, I would like the CIA and the NSA and the FBI and even the State Department in these situations to be focused on doing their jobs. And especially when it comes to the intelligence community, after what we saw happen in Manchester, and we've, of course, had these attacks here, we know that we have identified radical Islamic extremists here in the United States, upwards of 1,000, that I want them to be doing their job. I think the people at home want them to be doing their job, not focusing in on undermining, not spending their time undermining the current president because they may not like some of his policies or the way he words his policies. I want my NSA director not focused on Russia, but focused on Islamic terror and preventing that here in the United States. Same thing goes for the CIA and those agents. So that's again, another reason. So you don't want classified info out. You don't want these distractions. And then third, I think in the non-intelligence side of this, we want our Congress to stop just being an investigative body. It seems like all they do now is investigate, and not legislate. We need them to become legislators again so that things on domestic policy like health care starts moving again in the Senate, tax reform. I think that people at home want that, but you're not going to get there. See, these members of Congress, Mark, they look right now like they're really busy with these investigations. At the end of the day, all they can ultimately do is refer this to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice now has a special counsel, so they're going to be taking the lead on that. Members of Congress, on both sides, by the way, this is not just Democrats I'm talking about, they need to get back to governing. That's much tougher than just holding hearings and asking questions, but actually getting legislation through. Or else, I think you're going to see a very tough election cycle. I know we don't always want to talk about politics, but election cycle come 2018 in the midterms. So there's multiple reasons why we've got to get a handle on the deep state, the shadow government, and I think it's critical for the success of not just the Trump administration, but conservative policies to move forward in Washington, D.C.
All right, the executive director of the ACLJ, Jordan Sekulow, thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Thank you, Mark.